Hello, everyone. Welcome to In the Cordon, the place where every cricketer wants to be. I'm your host, Callum Doug, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the podcast. What a result for South Africa. They've done it once already this year, upsetting Australia in the World Test Championship final, and now they've gone over to Kolkata in India and knocked off the natives by 30 runs in the first test match. And after South Africa were bowled out for 159 on the first day, you just thought, how long can India bat, and how long is this game really going to last? But to South Africa's credit, they put in a hell of a performance and were able to really restrict India in that first innings. And there's a couple of special performances from a South African point of view that we'll talk about. But we've seen a trend probably in the last 18 months that India just haven't been as dominant in their home conditions. I understand it's a period of transition for the team with retirements of key players, Ravi Ashwin, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma. But the fact that they were knocked off by New Zealand 3-0 last year is very uncharacteristic of Indian sides playing at home. But seriously, great performance by South Africa. You can just see the resolve and the belief in this team. And I didn't think they had much chance in this series. And if you watch the preview video, I predicted India to win this series 2-0. And I just thought the quality of the Indian spinners would be too much for the South African batters. And India did a lot right in this game. If you said that South Africa would win the toss and India would bowl them out for 160 on day one, you'd say India's certainly bossing this game around. But South Africa were able to restrict India to a lead of just 30 runs. And when South Africa were about 4 for 40 odd last night, I thought, India will be able to get over the top and the spinners will be able to go to work. But it was Temba Bavuma, the South African captain, who was able to steady the ship, stand strong, and ended up with 55 not out. And he was very patient in that innings of 55. And I've really enjoyed his progression as a player over the last I'd say 24 months. We saw him, come into the South African side sort of around 2017, 2018, and he was able to play in a really good South African side with the likes of Hashim Amla, AB de Villiers, Aiden Markram, Dean Elgar. So he was able to, break his way into that side, which showed he was a quality player. But there was a period of time where he just couldn't convert his starts into bigger scores. And since he's taken over the captaincy of South Africa, he's been able to really step up as a player. There's a number of players who relish that extra responsibility and carry their team on their shoulders. And that's what he's been able to do. And his actual record as a captain in Test cricket is something that's to be marvelled at as well. I believe he's captained South Africa for about 10 or 11 Test matches, and he hasn't lost a game in that time. So obviously showing leadership with the bat, but able to get the best out of his team with his tactics in the field. So a special performance by Simon Harper, 4 for 30 in the first innings and 4 for 21 in the final innings of the game. And I just thought I remember Simon Harper coming on the scene about 10 years ago, and he was okay. He wasn't anything particularly special at the time, in my opinion. And the fact that he went over, he signed a co-plec deal, went and played for Essex for a number of years, was able to get so much county cricket experience and learning how to bowl in traditionally non-spin friendly conditions in England, which is obviously, well conducive to the seam and the swing. So the fact that he's been able to bowl on these decks for a number of years and then learn his craft in the subcontinent as well. And we've seen this second coming of Simon Harper when he's been able to come into the side when South Africa has been playing in the subcontinent and really be effective. He was quite effective in Pakistan, even though that was a drawn series. But his control, I thought, was spectacular, and he was able to bowl the one that just goes straight on in this game, as well as those big turners, and he was able to get a lot of bounce in this game, and that was such a big factor because some balls were obviously keeping low. Um, and he was able to get really good purchase out of the wicket. And he wasn't bowling super fast either. He was mostly around that 79 to 85 Ks an hour. And then when he'd bowl the quicker one, that would sort of be around that 92, 93 kilometre an hour mark. So I just thought it was an impressive performance for him. And another person that I wanted to give a shout out to from the South African team was Marco Jansen. And he took 3 for 35 in the first innings, which I thought was a great effort on a track that was definitely more conducive to the spin. But you need your seamers to come in and hit the deck hard and see if they can get something out of the surface. And the way that he's been able to apply himself in this game, I thought was spectacular. And he was the one that started it when India had a target of 125 to chase. He was able to get Jaswal and KL Rahul out early. Jaswal gone for a duck, KL Rahul gone for not too many today. And then Simon Harmer was able to, target those new batsmen. Lots of left-handers in the Indian side. So I know we'll talk about team changes and what they could do heading into the second test, but the number of left-handers in the Indian side in this game was certainly in the favour of the South Africans, with Harmer bowling really well and Aiden Markram bowling a couple of really handy overs and managing to get the wicket of Washington Sundar. If we look at the Indian side, I thought it was a very strange team selection. I understood they wanted to play 4 spinners, and I talked about this in the previous show if you happen to have watched it, but they were super keen on playing Jadeja, obviously number 1 spinner in India in test cricket, home and away. Axar Patel provides a very handy option with the bat at number 8 or 9. Honestly, could be batting a lot higher. I've seen him bat at number 5 for India in Test cricket, and in the T20 side in Australia, he was batting around that 5 or 6 mark. So he's a very, very handy player. Then Washington Sundar has been someone that India has really wanted to work into this Test team, and I think he is repaying them with both bat and ball. Didn't bowl that much in this game, to be perfectly honest, but we'll talk about his contributions with the bat in just a second. And Kuldeep Yadav, and I really like Kuldeep. If you watch the preview once again, I'm very big on this man. The way that he's been able to become such an attacking option, and now that there's no Ravi Ashwin in the side, he's really able to have that spot spinning the ball into the right-handers and away from the left-handers. And he can be so dangerous with that wronging out the back of the hand as well. So I thought that there was a chance that these 4 spinners would all play, but I thought it would be at expense of Mohammad Siraj. Obviously, you're going to be playing Bumrah. But I didn't expect them to drop Shai Sudarshan, and I'm a big fan of Shai Sudarshan. I think he's a really talented cricketer, and I think this is just throwing his confidence. And there's a strong possibility he could come back into the side for the second Test match with the injury to Shubman Gill. And the way that I think about this is I think that Washington Sundar is a perfectly capable batsman. I think he would be more suited to a number 5 or a 6 position rather than a number 3. And if you're wanting Shai Sudarshan to become your number 3 in Test cricket and probably more overseas as well, you need to get games into this kid. And he's got a lot of talent. We've seen what he's been able to do in IPL, and when he's been able to go and play county cricket for Surrey. I just think the selection of him in England dropped after a test and then came back for the last 2. And then, scoring some runs against the West Indies. Yes, I get Jarrell got 100 batting at number 7 and they wanted to reward him. I understand that. But I think, the way that they're treating this kid, he's only 24, 25 years of age, and he's obviously got time to develop into a full fledged Test cricketer. But I really don't like what they're doing with him. I think you need to have someone consistent at number 3, home and away. They were able to have such success with Pujara for a number of years, playing him in both home and away conditions, and we've seen how effective Pujara has been. Even though he's not as attacking as the other players, he was able to blunt the opposition, get the bowlers really tired, and the other players in the side who were more attacking were probably able to cash in as a result of that. So I don't like that team selection. I think Shai should be back, assuming that Gill is not fit for the second test match. Went to hospital after straining his neck going for a sweep shot, and it's obviously very unfortunate what happened to the captain, but I think this obviously had a massive impact on the game. If you had said to me, do you think Shubman Gill's going to score 30 runs across 2 innings, you'd obviously think so with the quality of player that he is. Obviously, nothing is guaranteed in Test cricket, but if Shubman Gill was able to play properly, or even just bat in the second innings, I think this could have been a potentially different result. But once again, full credit goes to South Africa. With Washington Sundar, scores of 31 and 29 in this game, I actually think he looked okay at number 3. Obviously, slower surface. If you're playing in England or Australia, does Washington Sundar bat number 3? No. Do I like the fact that India is trying to get him up the order? Yes, I do. I think it's a great idea. But I just think you need to work the team balance around having a consistent and regular number 3. So lots to think about for the Indian side. Jasprit Bumrah on day 1, absolutely spectacular. I tried to upload some highlights to YouTube for everyone to watch, but unfortunately it was blocked by Star Sports. So thanks very much for that one, Star Sports. But it was just a high quality spell of fast bowling, particularly those first 2 wickets of Ryan Rickleton and Aidan Markram. The one to Rickleton from around the wicket was just an absolutely spectacular ball. And the extra bounce that the Pacers were able to get in this game, we saw that with Jansen, but Bumrah was able to do it particularly well. I thought he was outstanding. We've seen him be able to bowl so well overseas, England, Australia, South Africa. But the fact he's so deadly in his home conditions, in conditions that are obviously not as conducive to fast bowling, and there wasn't really any reverse swing. It was more variable bounce in this game. But for a day 1 pitch in India to take 5 for 27 was a fantastic effort. Jadeja was good in this game. Didn't bowl that many overs in the first innings. Only bowled about 8 overs for 13. But then it was the second innings where he was able to target the new batsman, get the South African right-handers in, and go to work, and to end up with 4 for 50 in the third innings of the game, I think was a very, very good effort. So, obviously a great effort by South Africa. Lots of 20s and 30s with the bat, but it was that real innings of Temba Bavuma that I think really got them over the line, and obviously the spectacular performance of 8 match wickets for Simon Harmer was certainly fantastic. If we look at potential changes for the second test match, you'd think Rabada, if available, will come back in for Corbin Bosch, and I didn't mind what I saw from Corbin Bosch. I don't think he's someone that I would personally have bowling in my first choice team in subcontinental conditions. In South Africa, I certainly think he could be very, very handy, but he has played a bit more on the subcontinent recently with his stint with the Mumbai Indians. But if Rabada's fit, he's obviously top 3 fast bowlers in the world. He certainly gets a gig. If Gill is not available, I would certainly be going with Shai. I'd be putting him at 3, and then playing Jarrell at 4 probably made a bit more sense to me. Then Pant at 5, Washington at 6, Jadeja at 7, I think is probably a more balanced lineup. Whether you wanted to interchange Sundar and Jadeja 6 and 7, but if they seem pretty keen to get Washington Sundar up the order, I'd be looking at that. One thing I did want to talk about in this game, and I do think it had quite a big factor, was the scoring rates of the teams. I thought India, particularly in the chase, were way too defensive. And I fully understand it was a tricky wicket, and every player has their own unique approach. But it wasn't until when Axar Patel came to the crease and Kuldeep Yadav arrived at the crease that he started to think, I need to get a move on, and targeted the left arm spinner in Maharaj. And I just think there needed to be more aggression from this Indian side, particularly while the ball was new, because the new ball was the time to score. And Simon Harmer was bowling very well, and there was nothing to. He wasn't giving you much, but you needed to make something happen, whether it was using your feet, dancing down the wicket for a couple of balls, and then, being able to get deeper in the crease and using the one that's a little bit shorter of length and hitting it a bit more square. I just think there needed to be a different approach, and both sides, I think, were guilty of this throughout this game. But if I was being extremely critical of India, I think Rishad Pant showed them the blueprint in the first innings, and Pant was only able to get about 27 in that first innings, but it was the type of deck that one's got your name on it eventually, so you've got to make the most of your time at the crease and get as many runs as you can. The pitch, as someone who wants a game of Test cricket to at least go into day 4, I thought it was a poor pitch. Did I love watching this game of Test cricket? Absolutely. And that's coming from someone who is a neutral fan. I would rather a game be over in 3 days than a long, progressive, drawn-out, drawn game. I think back to the pitch in the Border Gavaskar Trophy in 2023, where it was the pitch at indoor and Australia were able to get up in an upset. And then the next pitch for the game in Ahmedabad was the flattest wickets that you've ever seen. Something in between those kinds of pitches, what we saw in Kolkata and what we saw in that game in Ahmedabad in 2023, it needs to be somewhere in the middle there. A couple of really good days for batting. So ideally, a team in Test cricket bats really well, gets about 300. The second team makes about 350. And then the team in the last innings, in the fourth innings of the game, is chasing somewhere between 200 and 250. That's how I think Test cricket should be played. Do we always get that? No. But this game, from a television spectacle, was extremely entertaining to watch. I loved it. Would I want more decks like this in Test cricket? Not particularly. Do I enjoy watching? If this type of pitch occurred again, would I be keen to watch it? Absolutely. But there just needs to be a better balance between the ball turning square on days 1 and 2 for 27 wickets to fall in the first 2 days of a Test match is a sign of a relatively poor pitch. And it affects the broadcasters as well. Obviously, there's a lot of money at stake in Indian cricket, and the Indian cricket team is one of the most watched teams around the world. So broadcasters want to be able to take that product and utilize it to its full advantage, and the pitches are not serving the best product for the broadcasters, and that's something that curators and cricket boards certainly need to take into consideration. I hope there's just not an overcorrection too much for the next Test match in Guwahati. So, really keen to see what happens in the next Test match. I thoroughly enjoyed this game of cricket. It was a fantastic result by South Africa. India still did a lot right in this game, but for me, it was the lack of aggression in the run chase that brought South Africa further into the game. And Temba Bavuma, I think, was unlucky not to be named man in the match. I know Simon Harmer took the wickets, but I think without Temba Bavuma's contribution, South Africa don't win this game. So thanks very much for tuning into the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to us. Follow us on all of your social media pages and wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.